All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome to part 2. Yeah, this is probably the part that everyone was waiting for. Um, I know at least some people were. So let's just jump right into it and let's see how it goes. I just want to start off with that if you stick around for a little bit in the video, there will be a freebie waiting for you in there to help you achieve a very similar sound to me, or the same sound if you're really cool. So yeah, so let's just get started. So this is the MIDI bass that I printed out. It's just the DI. It sounds like this. Not very exciting right now. I mean, it sounds like a bass DI, but it doesn't sound very cool. So first off, make 2 mono tracks because we're gonna actually duplicate this bass into 2 tracks, like so. And yeah, it's gonna make no sense right now why we did this, but I will show you. And then we can just delete this track because I don't need that. Okay, so basically why we did this is we're going to split the bass into the low sub bass, or the lows of the bass. So this one we're gonna filter out a lot of the high frequencies to just keep the very low frequencies in this one. And in this one we're gonna keep the higher frequencies and the mid-range, because that way we can control the bass sound a lot better. So instead of having to try to EQ and adjust one bass, like only one track, it gets a lot harder to make a nice balance of the lows and the highs in a bass if you just use one track. So you might end up just killing your bass sound instead. So using this method, we can actually have a lot more control, which is a very good thing. So I say, it's not me who invented this technique, so I say thank the Lord to the person who did, because I love it. Some people are even more advanced and they use 3 tracks, but I'm not gonna do that, and I don't think I will ever start doing that. So first off, the bass still sounds like it did. Gonna turn off that, sorry. Okay. I've lowered this in volume before because I set the balances in beforehand, so this video doesn't turn out to be 40 minutes long. So first off, I add an amp simulator to the low track. And in this one, I just use a bass amp head. So it just gives it a bass amp sound. And then here I have a custom impulse response for the cab, and basically that's a cab that's been recorded and then customly been imported into this amp simulator. So it doesn't come with the amp sim, but I will include a link in the description for this package of amp cabs. So it's just an Ampeg SVT 8x10 cab. And it's been mic'd with different mics at different distances. So you can really, experiment and try to get a bass sound that you like. So you don't have to follow the exact example that I use here. But what's also important in this one is I like to play around with the knobs a little bit of the amp sim. So I don't just put it on and that's good to go. So this is the difference that it makes. As you can tell, it got very bassy on this one, but that's because I've actually turned up the bass and the gain, and I turned down the mids a little bit and the treble, because in this one we're only keeping the low frequencies anyways, so the bass and knob is the most important part, and I don't need a lot of mids or treble or presence for that matter, but I like to keep a little presence when on the low track. So yeah, let's move on. And then it's the filtering. So an EQ, any EQ will do, doesn't matter which one you use. And I take out a little bit of low end in this one. So I take out some subs up to 31 hertz. But you don't have to do that. That's just a decision I made because there's a lot of sub bass in this song from other things like synths and synth bass. So you don't really have to do that. But the important part is I did a low pass, which is this thing. So this is what your EQ might look like from the start. And I just took one of these and I turned it down to like, 120 hertz worked for this song, or 30 or something. Doesn't matter too much on the exact number, but find what sounds best for your song. So this is what it sounds like on the bass for me. Because right here, there's too much mids and boominess for me. See, I just want to keep the soft frequencies that sound very warm and nice. And that's all I want to do for the low on the EQ. Then what I do is I add an R-Bass, and R-Bass is a bass enhancement plugin, or enhance plugin, which it actually creates harmonic saturation frequencies of some sort. That it generates frequencies that aren't there, and it's amazing for a lot of different purposes actually, but it's great for bass as well. So this is what it does. This one just helps the low part of the bass to stick out better in smaller speaker systems. So it's pretty great. And this is just a sidechain compression I use for the kick drum, so that's nothing I'm going to cover here. And then I just have a compressor. Just doing a bit of gain reduction to smoothen out the bass and keep it kind of tight and even on every note that it plays. So let's move on to the high part of the bass, or the upper frequency part. So first off, amp simulator. Same thing as with the other one, but as you can see here, I've turned down the bass knob quite a bit. I've turned down the mids quite a bit here too, because I add some mids back in later, and you'll see why and how. And on this one, the treble and the presence is very high up because I want this type of sound. I want the pick attack to stick out as much as possible, and the metallic part of the strings, so it really just kicks out and becomes more audible, which helps a lot. Excuse me, which helps a lot with making the bass sound more attacky and kind of like high energy. And then let's move on to the filtering first. So on this one, I just did the opposite thing basically as we did with the low one. So as you can see, okay, let's put it to 130. Maybe that's what it was in the beginning. Yeah, doesn't matter too much, somewhere around there. So as you can see, I I actually filtered out all of the high end on this one down to 131 or 130. And on this one, I filtered out the low end up to 130. So they kind of, together they create one big picture, or bass picture. They complete the spectrum together. They're like Romeo and Juliet or something. So, and yeah, this is what that sounds like. And yeah, I know it sounds really strange right now, but don't worry, we're getting to it. So then what I do is I add an overdrive pedal. And I actually like to use this guitar overdrive pedal, which is the TSE 808 2.0. This one is free, and I can post a link to this one in the description. It's completely free, and it's awesome for both bass and guitar. So this is what that one does. And that one brings up the attack quite a bit. And I just added a little bit of drive. But the important part that I used this one for is the tone knob, because it brightens the tone up quite a bit, and it does some nice stuff to it. Then I added a distortion plugin or saturation plugin called Temper. This one is actually also free, so I'll post this one, a link to this one in the description as well. And I love this plugin. I use it on bass every time nowadays. And this is what it does. It's gonna sound very, very nasty, but trust me, in the bigger picture, it makes sense. And you can actually push this one a lot more, so it becomes really, really nasty, but that's not what I want to do for this song, but I can show you. But I want to keep it a bit more clean, because there's already a ton of distortion in the song. So yeah, next up, compression. I do quite hard compression with this one, but with a very low ratio actually. But this you can do however you want. You can compress it really hard if you want, and yeah, I don't. It doesn't need to be compressed that hard, I guess, but you can play around with this as much as you want. I like when bass is very compressed, and this is also a sidechain compression, so don't worry about that one. And then I have an EQ here. And all I do here is take out some nasty honky frequencies in the low mids section, and I boost a little bit of high end here. So let's check it without it and with it. Okay, but this is not actually the entire thing. I mean, great, we're getting there. We're really close. But then I send both of these tracks to a bus, and on this bus I have another compressor actually, which kind of pushes the two tracks together very nicely and makes them glue with each other, or make love with each other in some sense, and so they become more cohesive and they sound more like one nice bass tone. So to me, that last compression plugin that I put on the bass bus, it does some magic, man. I don't know. I just tried it once and I never went back. And then after that, I just added one more EQ, and in this one I do some more surgical cuts to take out some honky frequencies again, and boost a little bit of top end again. And I just removed stuff I didn't like, so let's check how it affects the tone. So it's not a massive difference, but that's pretty much how I achieve my bass tones. And also, every time it's a bit different. I mean, I like to play around. I use different cabs, different amps, but the method and the principles are the same. So I hope you learned something from this, and I hope that you enjoyed this video, and also the last video. And yeah, if there's something else you want to learn about bass mixing or whatever, recording, mixing,